What up, fight fans? It is Saturday night, July 25th. It's time for the Iman Report after a wonderful fight card on ESPN, on UFC on ESPN 14. Your winner is Robert Whittaker over Darren Till. All three judges had it 48-47. This was a really good fight, very entertaining. This fight could have gone either way, but Whittaker is the victor out of this one. Darren Till, that wonderful in a losing effort tonight. The WTF was in the fifth round. Why did Herb Dean break up the fight to check everybody? Nobody fouled anybody, so that was the WTF. But I think these two fighters, for their efforts, is give them some money. Give them the 50 G's. That's definitely going to be fight of the night. But for Darren Till, don't give up at 185. There's no shame losing a close fight to Robert Whittaker. Till's got a bright future at 185. Whittaker, this is a good win. The problem is it really doesn't advance him as in terms of the middleweight title picture as of right now. Matchmaking for him is going to be very interesting. Next month, Israel Adesanya will be fighting Paulo Costa Borrachina for the middleweight title. I suppose you could give Whittaker Costa if Borrachina loses to Adesanya next month. And that's going to be a barn burner in that one right there. Right? Those two have beef. So one possibility is Costa Borrachina if he loses to Adesanya. I don't think he'll get Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier is very likely getting the next title shot at 185, especially now that Whittaker was the victor. That very likely cements Cannonier as the next contender at 185. You could put him up against Jack Hermanson. That would be a very fun fight. Hermanson, a very good striker, very good grappler. That could be a very good grappling match. That's a possibility. Or Edmund Shaboyzian, should he say blow out, if he say knocks out Derek Brunson cold, that's next week's fight as ESPN will. As the UFC returns to Las Vegas Apex next Saturday night, and the main event will be Edmund Shaboyzian against Derek Brunson. So that's the problem, is it still doesn't put Whittaker that much closer to getting his title back as of right now. But as for Darren Till, what's next for him? You could I don't want to see him take that much of a step down, but I think he's going to have to take maybe the loser. I would go ahead and say maybe the loser of Derek Brunson and Edmund Shaboyzian should be next for Darren Till, but Darren Till will be back at 185. He is a contender at this point. I don't think he's going to be a gatekeeper at 185. Or you could give him another possibility is maybe the loser of Romero and Uriah Hall. I think I'm going to go with that. The loser of Hall and Romero. Could you imagine how great of a fight Yoel Romero, Darren Till fight would be? That would be very exciting to watch right there. But Till's not going to fall that far down in the rankings. Whittaker, unfortunately for him, it's just not going to get him that much closer to the title shot. It's very likely Jared Cannonier is going to get the next title shot at 185 after Adesanya and Costa Borrachina finish business next month. In the co-main event, Shogun Mauricio Hua and Little Nog finish their trilogy with Shogun winning by split decision 29-28, 29-28, and then one judge had it for Little Nog. As for Shogun, I really don't know who should be next for him. I honestly think it's time for Shogun to retire. I think Shogun's had a great career in the UFC. He will definitely be a Hall of Famer. But I think, honestly, for him, retire on top. That's retire with a win. Walk away from the sport. I think that's what should happen for Shogun. As for Little Dog, he's already announced he's retired. He's going to retire from the UFC. He will likely be in the UFC Hall of Fame. And he's going to have a nice retirement and a great career in the UFC. Even though he never won a belt, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. He will certainly be in the UFC Hall of Fame. So I think retirements for both. I really don't want to see Shogun in the UFC too much longer at this point. In the fight before that, Alexander Gustafsson loses his heavyweight debut to Fabricio Verdum. As unfortunately the takedown defense was just not there tonight for Alexander Gustafsson, and Verdum ragdolled him in this fight. I don't know if Gustafsson should stay at heavyweight or not, but I do think for him a step down in competition is what is likely needed for Gustafsson at heavyweight. As for Verdum, I don't think he'll fight for a title anytime soon, but he is still a serviceable gatekeeper at the heavyweight division. So I think for him, he gets another young gun to gatekeep against. Maybe the winner of Shamil Abdurakhimov and Cyril Gagne is who should be next for Fabricio Verdum. As for Alexander Gustafsson, maybe put him up against a fighter that'd be more likely to strike it, to strike with him, and I think that could be Walt Harris. That could be a very fun fight, Walt Harris versus Alexander Gustafsson, two names. And I think that's a little bit of a small step down for Gustafsson. Harris not necessarily known for good fight IQ. Gustafsson's a lot more of a technical striker. Let these two exchange strikes and see what shakes out of that. I'll give Gustafsson one more fight at heavyweight if he loses to a guy like Walt Harris, then I kind of think it's time to pull the plug at heavyweight. In the women's strawweight division tonight before that, Carla Esparza beats Marina Rodriguez by split decision 29-28, 30-27. One judge had it 29-28 for Rodriguez. As for Carla Esparza, I think this is her third win in a row. I'm going to take a look. I think at least 4. She's gone on a 4-fight winning streak since dropping back-to-back fights from Suarez and Gadelha, with the best win being Michelle Watterson. I don't know if she's ever going to contend for a belt again at 115. But I certainly think she is making herself cementing herself at least as a spot as a gatekeeper at the women's strawweight division. I think who should be next for the Cookie Monster. I would like to see Amanda Ribas go up against Carla Esparza. That could be a really good fight. If Esparza gets victorious against her, we could see her rematch against one of the top fighters at the 115 division. As for Marina Rodriguez, this is her first loss in this is her first loss in the UFC. And maybe she has a little bit of a ceiling. She drew with Calvillo before that. Maybe the loser of Jan and Gedalia should be next for Rodriguez. In the fight before that, Paul Craig submits Gadzima Gantigilov by triangle choke. Who should be next for Paul Craig? Okay, I think Devin Clark, that would be a very good fight right there. Paul Craig, Devin Clark. As for Antigulov, the loser of Don Un Jung and Ed Herman. And the fight before that, Cowboy Alex Oliveira gets the unanimous decision. All three judges had it 30-27 over Peter Sabata. Oliveira now has won 2 in a row since dropping 3 in a row. It's unlikely the Brazilian Cowboy will ever be a contender at welterweight, but he is still an entertaining gatekeeper at 170. Who should be next for Alex Oliveira? What the rankings suggest. Muslim Salikov. I think that would be a very good fight. Salikov and Cowboy. That would give Muslim Salikov a name to fight. So we can find out how good this prospect really is against an experienced fighter like Alex Oliveira. As for Peter Sabota, his next fight should be against the loser of Sean Brady and Christian Aguilera. Go with that. And in the first card on the main ESPN card tonight, Kazmat Shimiev beats Rice McKeeve. via TKO. And he breaks the record for quickest turnaround in 10 days. So he wins 2 fights within 10 days. This is a new UFC record right there. So I certainly think Shimiev is going to get a step up. He likely gets a debutante next. In the prelim cards, main event of the prelim card, Francisco Trinaldo beats Jai Herbert via TKO. Who is next for Trinaldo? I say give him Islam Makhachev next. I think that would be a really exciting fight. Makhachev versus Trinaldo, that should be next. Debutante for Herbert. At welterweight tonight, Nicholas Dalby gets submitted by Jesse Ronson via rear naked choke. Who is next for Jesse Ronson? And this was his first fight in the UFC, actually. So, wow. Question is, will he stay at welterweight or will we go back to 155? I suppose you put him up against Mike Perry. Nah. The winner of Sean Brady, Claudio Henrique da Silva. I'll go with the Amib. Okay. Ramazan Amib and Stoll's winner, I think, should be next for Ronson. Nicholas Dalby, the loser of Brady and Nardiev, and Aguilera should be next for Dalby. I'll go with that. At heavyweight before that, Tom Aspinall beats Jake Collar via TKO. Featherweight, Movsar Evalev beats Mike Grundy via unanimous decision 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. Tanner Boser beats Rafael Pessoa via TKO. For Boser, I think that's his second. I think he just. Yeah, that's his second win in a row. Who should be next for Boser? Sergey Pavlovich should be next for Boser. As for Rafael Pessoa, 1-2 now in the UFC. So I think he gets likely fed to another can. Before that, at women's bantamweight, Pani Kianzad beats Beth Correa via unanimous decision 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. Pani Kianzad now 2-1 in her return to the UFC. Since coming to the UFC, excuse me. And Kianzad could get a step up in competition after beating Beth Correa. He was ranked number 18. According to Fight Matrix. Okay, the next for her should be the winner of Yana Kunitskaya and Ketlin Vieira. As for who's next for Beth Correa, has she ever fought Lena Landsberg? Let's see. No, she's not. So yeah, I'll give her Lena Landsberg next. Correa still loses a lot more than she wins these days. And the fight before that, Ramazan. Okay, I'll go. Ami versus Ronson should be next. I'll go that. Do a little Stoles versus Dalby. There we go. Do a little lazy matchmaking on that. Ami. So I'm catching myself here on the pairings. So we'll be doing a little lazy matchmaking. I'll just pair up Ronson with Amiv and Dalby with Stoles. Those two should be next. And in the opener, Nathaniel Wood beats John Castaneda via unanimous decision. Wood coming back from a loss. Who should be next for Nathaniel Wood? Castaneda gets a debutante next. The winner of Ray Borg and John Nathan Manis. I'll give him. That sounds about right to me. And that will conclude it as UFC leaves Fight Island for a while. It's back to Las Vegas next week. Next Saturday night could be the coming out party of Edmund Shaboyzian, as he will be the main event next week against Derek Brunson. And this fight will be on ESPN Plus, with NBA returning and NHL returning. So UFC is going to be likely heading back to ESPN Plus for the most part now, with the sports bubbles starting up next week. A perfect opportunity for people to stay home, maybe get these cases down, enjoy some sports, please. Just stay home on that. Yeah, we'll have Brunson and Shaboyzian back in Las Vegas. Other entertaining fights on that card: Joanne Calderwood versus Jennifer Maia. I am actually very surprised Calderwood took that fight, giving up her potential title shot against Valentina Shevchenko. So now Maia could be fighting Calderwood for the title. Randy Brown versus Vicente Luque. That could be a very entertaining fight there. Very underrated fight, especially if Randy Brown gets the win. Rude Boy could end up being in the top 15. Got Venata versus Green. Kevin Holland against Trevin Giles. So we have got Fight Night on ESPN Plus. I'm going to head to bed. I have had a long work week. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to do NHL previews. The NHL playoff previews. Yes, NHL is back next Saturday. The hockey bubble starts. So I'm going to make my picks for the Stanley Cup playoffs next week, minus the round robin. So I'll do my first round previews tomorrow, then we'll do another set of previews once the round robin and the first round is complete. Everybody have a wonderful night. Good night.